Hello, and welcome to Quiet Nights Through History, a place where the world slows down and the past gently carries you to sleep. Tonight, we are stepping into a quiet evening in ancient Egypt, 33 centuries ago, where a family beside the Nile prepares for rest. Dear traveler of time, we'll journey together to a place very far from here, a place where the sand holds memories thousands of years old, where the great river Nile flows as it has always flowed, bringing life to the desert. Take a slow breath with me now. In through your nose and out through your mouth. Good. We are going back in time, back 33 centuries, to the golden age of ancient Egypt, to the reign of the powerful pharaohs of the 18th dynasty. This is the time of Hatshepsut, of Thutmose, of the great Amenhotep, the age when temples rose to touch the sky, when art and beauty flourished like lotus flowers on the Nile. This is a time when scribes recorded history on papyrus scrolls, when artists painted tombs with scenes of eternal life, when the gods walked close to the living. But tonight, we do not visit palaces, we do not walk among pharaohs. Instead, we visit something far more intimate, far more real. We visit the home of an ordinary family, a home along the Nile, where the rhythm of life moves with the seasons, with the flooding of the great river, with the rising and setting of Ra, the sun god, in his daily journey across the heavens. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw relax. Let the weight of your body sink gently into your bed. You are safe. You are here with me. And together, we will witness the evening unfold in this ancient place. The sun is setting now over the western desert. The sky is painted in shades of amber and rose, deep orange and soft purple, colors so vivid they seem painted by the gods themselves. The heat of the day, that relentless dry heat that baked the mud brick buildings and turned the sand into rivers of gold, is finally beginning to fade. The desert horizon glows with the last light of Radis Bark as it begins its nightly journey through the underworld. A gentle breeze drifts from the north, carrying with it the scent of the Nile, that ancient smell of water and earth, of fish and papyrus, of life itself in the midst of the desert. The breeze touches your face, cool and blessed, a gift after the long hot day. You can feel it moving across your skin, lifting the edges of fabric, stirring the dust in small spirals. Take another breath. Feel the air moving in your lungs, and release. This is a small village, not far from the great city of Thebes, which in our time we call Luxor. The houses here are modest, built from mud bricks that have been dried in the fierce Egyptian sun. Each brick was formed by hand, pressed into wooden molds, turned out to dry in neat rows under the relentless sky. The walls are thick, sometimes 3 feet deep, keeping the heat of the day outside, keeping the cool of the night inside. If you were to place your hand on one of these walls right now, you would feel something remarkable. The surface is slightly rough, textured by the grains of sand and straw that bind the mud together. But more than that, you would feel warmth. The wall has been absorbing heat all day, storing it like a great battery. And now as evening comes, it releases that warmth slowly back into the air. The wall is almost alive, breathing heat like breath, participating in the ancient rhythm of day and night. Showerful. The roofs are flat, made from palm wood beams covered with palm leaves and more dried mud, strong enough to walk upon, to sleep upon during the hottest months. Many families sleep on these roofs when the summer heat becomes unbearable below, under the vast blanket of stars, with the Nile breeze flowing over them like a blessing. But tonight, the family we visit will sleep below in the protected darkness of their chamber. We enter through a low wooden door into a small courtyard. The door is made from acacia wood, dense and strong, hanging on leather hinges that have been oiled smooth with animal fat. You have to duck slightly to enter, the doorway built low to keep the precious cool air from escaping, and also to make any intruder vulnerable, forced to stoop. This courtyard is the heart of the home, the center of all domestic life. The courtyard is open to the sky, a rectangle of dusty earth, enclosed by mud brick walls on all 4 sides. It measures perhaps 15 feet by 20 feet, large enough for daily activities, but intimate enough to feel protected, enclosed, safe from the vastness of the desert beyond. The earth beneath your feet, if you were standing there, would feel warm still from the day's heat, but cooling now, becoming comfortable. In one corner, there is a simple hearth, 3 stones arranged in a triangle, where the cooking fire burns low now, its flames dancing in the evening breeze. The stones are blackened from years of use, their surfaces smooth from heat, each one carefully chosen for its ability to withstand fire without cracking. The smoke rises straight up at first, a thin grey column, then catches the wind and disperses into the cooling air. The smoke carries layers of scent. First, the sharp, clean smell of burning dung fuel, surprisingly pleasant, like dried grass. Then the yeasty, comforting smell of bread that was baked earlier. Then the sweet, caramelized smell of onions that have been cooking slowly. Then the earthy smell of lentils simmering. And underneath it all, a hint of spice, cumin and coriander, the everyday magic of cooking that transforms raw ingredients into nourishment. The floor of the courtyard is hard-packed earth, swept clean each morning with bundles of dried grass bound together. The surface is smooth from years of feet walking, the same paths, from jars being set down in the same places, from the daily repetition of life. If you look closely, you can see the pattern of the broom strokes, parallel lines in the fine dust, evidence of morning care. A few clay pots sit near the wall, arranged with intention. Some hold water drawn from the Nile earlier in the day, their porous surfaces sweating slightly, keeping the contents cool through evaporation. One of nature's oldest refrigeration systems. Others hold grain, barley, and emmer wheat, the seeds that will become tomorrow's bread. Others hold dried fish preserved with salt, or dates bought from a traveling merchant, sweet and wrinkled. In the corner near the entrance, a small shrine has been carved into the wall, barely larger than a hand, a niche cut into the mud brick and smoothed with plaster. This is where the family places offerings to Base, the dwarf god who protects the home, who watches over children, who brings joy and wards away evil spirits. A tiny clay figure of Base sits there now, crude but powerful, his face frozen in a fierce yet protective expression, his tongue sticking out to frighten away demons. Around the figure, small offerings have been placed, renewed each day. A wilted flower, a piece of bread, 3 dates arranged in a row. Around the courtyard, several rooms open up, their doorways covered with woven reed mats that can be rolled up during the day or let down at night for privacy and warmth. The mats are made from papyrus reeds cut from the marshes and woven by skilled hands into tight, even patterns. They hang from wooden rods and sway gently when the wind catches them, making a soft rustling sound like whispered secrets, like the reeds themselves remembering the marshes they came from. The walls inside these rooms are plastered with mud mixed with straw and painted white with crushed limestone. The white reflects light, makes the dim interiors brighter, creates a sense of cleanliness and order. But the paint has worn in places, showing the earthen brick beneath, revealing the bones of the house. The ceilings are low, supported by rough wooden beams cut from palm trees, and they smell faintly of the desert, of sun-baked wood, of time passing slowly. Let us step into the evening now, as the family returns to their home after a long day of labor. The father, Amenemhat, is a craftsman who works with his hands, carving small amulets and decorative pieces from limestone and wood. His name means Amun, is at the fore, connecting him to the king of the gods. His fingers are calloused, thick pads of hard skin, built up over years of gripping tools. They are permanently stained with the dust of stone and the oils he uses to polish his work, a pale grey colour that no amount of washing can remove. Under his fingernails there is always a rim of stone dust, packed in tight, a mark of his trade that he wears with quiet pride. When he clenches his fist, you can see the power in his hands, the strength that comes from years of patient, careful work. These hands have made hundreds of amulets, thousands of small carvings, each one bearing the mark of his skill, his patience, his devotion to craft. He walks slowly through the courtyard, his bare feet making soft sounds on the packed earth, each step deliberate and careful. His feet are tough as leather on the bottoms, thick calluses protecting them from hot sand and sharp stones, but they still feel the texture of the ground, still register the familiar feel of home. He carries with him the tiredness that is good and honest, the tiredness that comes from a day of skilled work, from creating beauty with patient hands. His shoulders are slightly stooped from hours bent over his work table, and when he straightens, his spine makes small popping sounds of relief. The mother, Mutamwea, moves with practiced grace through the space, her movements efficient and sure. Her name means mutas in the sacred bark, connecting her to the mother goddess. She has spent her day grinding grain between two stones, the upper stone heavy in her arms as she pushed it back and forth in endless circles. She has made bread, kneading dough until her arms burn. She has washed clothes in the Nile, beating them against rocks. She has tended to the small garden plot behind the house, where a few vegetables grow in the rich black soil left by the river's flood. Her skin is sun-darkened to the color of burnished bronze, the backs of her hands darker than her palms from constant exposure. Her hands are strong, with calluses that tell the story of her work. Her eyes are kind and watchful, always tracking her children, always aware. She wears a simple linen dress, called a calasiris, that falls straight from her shoulders to her ankles in an unbroken line. The linen is unbleached, a natural cream color, worn soft from many washings. The fabric of her dress is remarkable if you truly notice it. Linen from flax, spun and woven by hand. It is almost as fine as silk, so light it barely seems to exist. It moves with her body like a second skin, comfortable and familiar as her own breath. When the breeze catches it, the fabric floats for a moment, hovering before settling back against her legs. There are two children in this household. A boy of perhaps 8 years named Khonsu, after the moon god, the divine child who wanders across the night sky. He has his father's serious eyes and his mother's quick smile, and a girl of 5 named Nefertari, meaning the beautiful companion, a name that speaks of grace and favor. She has her mother's dark eyes and her father's steady hands. They chase each other around the courtyard now, their laughter high and bright, the pure sound of childhood joy. Their bare feet slap against the earth, raising small puffs of dust with each step. They dodge around the water jars, weave past the hearth, their game complex and ever-changing, following rules known only to them. The sound of their laughter echoes off the walls, bouncing back, filling the small space with life and energy. They are dressed in simple linen tunics that come to their knees, secured at one shoulder with a knot. Their heads are shaved smooth, as is the custom for children of their age and station. The shaving keeps them cool in the intense heat and prevents infestations of lice. The smoothness of their scalps catches the fading light, making them look almost luminous, almost like small gods themselves. Around each of their necks hangs a small amulet, an eye of Horus in blue-glazed faience, that otherworldly blue that seems to glow from within. As the sun sinks lower toward the western horizon, the light in the courtyard changes moment by moment, shifting through the spectrum, transforming the familiar space. The harsh brightness of midday, that flat white light that washes out all color, softens into something golden, something gentle and kind. The shadows grow longer, stretching across the courtyard floor like dark fingers, reaching across the space like the hands of time itself made visible. The heat still rises from the earth, from the walls that stored it all day, but it is fading now, becoming bearable, becoming almost pleasant. The temperature is dropping, degree by degree, minute by minute, following the ancient pattern of desert climate. What was unbearable at midday is now becoming comfortable. By full dark, it will be cool, perhaps even chilly. Mutamwaya moves to the hearth with purposeful grace. She adds a few small pieces of dried dung to the fire, feeding it, keeping it alive for the evening meal. The dung cakes are hard and surprisingly clean, almost like thick crackers, and they burn with a steady low flame. The fire crackles softly as the new fuel catches, and a new plume of smoke rises into the evening air. She places a clay pot on the fire, settling it carefully onto the 3 stones. The pot is blackened on the bottom from many previous uses. She adds water from one of the larger vessels, pouring it carefully into the water. She crumbles pieces of leftover bread from the morning, breaking it up with her fingers. She adds some onions, small and strong flavored. She adds a handful of lentils from a large storage jar. She adds a pinch of salt from a precious small container, using it sparingly because salt is valuable. The smell begins to rise with the steam, filling the courtyard with layers of aroma that define this place as home. The yeasty smell of bread dissolving, the sweet sharp smell of onions softening, the earthy smell of lentils beginning to break down. These are the smells of home, of safety, of the everyday made sacred through repetition. A Menon sits on a low wooden stool near the entrance to one of the rooms. The stool is simple, 3 legs joined at the top, worn smooth by years of use. He removes his work kilt, that rectangular piece of linen wrapped around his waist. He picks up a clay bowl filled with water, cool water that has been sitting in the shade all day. Using a small piece of linen cloth, he begins to wash his hands, his arms, his face. The water is cool against his sun-heated skin, almost shockingly cool, a blessing after the heat of the day. He washes slowly, methodically, with care and attention. This is not a hurried scrub, but a ritual, a transition from work to rest, from the outside world to the sanctuary of home. The water runs down his arms and drips onto the courtyard floor, darkening the earth where it falls, creating temporary dark spots that will dry again within minutes. This washing is more than just cleansing the body. In ancient Egypt, cleanliness is connected to purity, to godliness, to Ma'at, the cosmic order and balance that must be maintained in all things. Ma'at is everything: truth, justice, harmony, balance, order. To be clean is to be in harmony with the world, with the gods. Dirt represents chaos, disorder. Cleanliness represents order, harmony, brightness. Amen whispers a short prayer as he washes. Too quiet for us to hear the words clearly, but the intention is clear in the reverent way he moves his hands. He is thanking the gods for the gift of water, for the blessing of another day completed, for the health to work and provide for his family. The Utumwea calls the children to her voice gentle but firm. Konsu and Nefertari come reluctantly, still full of energy, but they obey. She takes them one at a time, kneeling before them so she is at their level. She washes their hands and faces with water from another bowl, water she has kept specifically for this purpose. She is firm but tender, holding their small wrists gently but securely, tilting their chins up with one finger to wipe the dust from their cheeks, checking behind their ears where dirt likes to hide. Nefertari squirms and giggles, making a game of it even now, trying to pull away, being difficult in the way that 5-year-olds are difficult. Utemwea is patient, simply continuing with the task. Konsu stands still, or as still as an 8-year-old boy can manage, trying to be grown up, trying to be serious like his father. He wants to be seen as a man, or at least as not a child. He holds himself rigid, his jaw set. But when his mother's gentle hands clean his face, when her fingers wipe cool water across his forehead and cheeks, he softens slightly, allowing himself to be cared for. When the children are clean, their faces shining, Utemwea herself takes a moment to wash. She pours water from a clay jug over her hands, holding them over the washing basin. She rubs her hands together, working at the day's accumulation of flour dust and garden soil. The water catches the firelight as it falls, transformed by light into something magical, like liquid copper, like molten metal. She splashes water on her face, gasping slightly at the coolness. She splashes her neck, behind her ears, letting the water run down. Droplets cling to her eyelashes like tiny jewels, and she blinks them away. The water on her face evaporates quickly in the dry air. You can almost see it disappearing, leaving her skin feeling clean and refreshed. The light continues to fade. The sky above the courtyard is deepening from gold to indigo, that rich deep blue that seems to have infinite depth. The first stars are beginning to appear, Small and tentative at first, then growing brighter. They appear one by one, each one a small miracle of light, then in clusters, and then suddenly the whole sky seems full of them. Venus, the evening star, appears low on the western horizon, following the sun down into the realm of the night. It's brighter than any other star, and it seems to pulse slightly, to breathe. The Egyptians call it the star that crosses, because it appears sometimes in the evening sky, and sometimes in the morning sky. It has always been a marker of the transition from day to night, a celestial guide. The fire in the hearth glows more brightly now, as the natural light fades. It casts flickering shadows on the walls, on the faces of the family members. The flames dance and jump, never still, making a soft crackling sound that is one of the oldest and most comforting sounds known to humanity. New Tamwaya stirs the pot with a wooden spoon, the spoon old and worn, carved by Amenemhat years ago when they were first married. The contents have begun to soften and meld together. The lentils are breaking down, their skins splitting. The bread has dissolved into a thick porridge. The onions have become translucent and sweet. She tastes it from the spoon, blowing on it first. She considers, then adds a bit more salt, just a pinch. Satisfied, she removes the pot from the fire using a folded cloth. The pot is heavy, full of food and water, and she lifts it carefully. She sets it down on a flat stone near the hearth, smooth and heat-resistant. The pot settles with a soft sound, and steam rises from it. The family gathers now for their evening meal. They sit on woven reed mats that have been laid out on the courtyard floor earlier, arranged in a loose circle around the hearth, so everyone can see the fire, can share its light and warmth. These mats are works of art, in their own right, woven from papyrus reeds with remarkable skill. Each reed placed with care, the pattern tight and even. There is no table, no chairs of the kind we would recognize. They sit cross-legged or kneeling, their bodies relaxed, comfortable in these ancient postures. The mats beneath them are soft, despite being woven from dried reeds, flexible and giving, cushioning them from the hard earth. They smell faintly of the marshes they came from, of water and green growing things, of the Nile Delta where papyrus grows in vast stands. When you shift your weight on these mats, they make a soft creaking sound, the reeds rubbing against each other, a sound that is somehow reassuring, domestic, the sound of home. Newton Wire serves the food in smaller clay bowls, one for each family member. The bowls kept specifically for eating and used for nothing else. The bowls are simple, unglazed, made by a local potter who trades his work for grain. Their surfaces are slightly rough to the touch, porous clay that absorbs small amounts of whatever it holds. Each bowl is slightly different, handmade, with small imperfections that make them unique. There's a chip on the rim of a Menemhat's bowl, a small triangular piece missing from when it was dropped years ago, but it's still perfectly functional, and he's fond of it, attached to its familiarity. Konsu's bowl has a crack that was repaired with tree resin, a dark line that runs from rim to base. Mutemuia's bowl is the most perfect, given to her by her mother when she married. Nefertari's bowl is the smallest, sized for a child, decorated with a simple scratched pattern around the rim. She hands the bowls out carefully, with a sense of ceremony. Even though this is just dinner, she starts with Amenemhat, honoring him as head of household, then the children, first Konsu as the elder, then Nefertari. Finally, she takes one for herself, serving herself last, as is proper, as she has done every day of her married life. The food is steaming, too hot to eat immediately. They wait patiently, letting it cool, watching the steam rise and dissipate. There are also pieces of flatbread, cooked earlier on hot stones. The bread is still slightly warm, wrapped in clean linen to protect it. The surfaces are marked with small air bubbles and scorch marks from the stones, each loaf bearing the unique signature of its making. The bread is dense and chewy, made from emmer wheat, that ancient grain that is the staple of Egypt. When you tear the bread, you have to pull hard, because the texture is substantial. It doesn't tear easily like modern bread. You feel the resistance, then suddenly it gives, separating along an irregular line. Inside, you can see the crumb structure, dense and compact, studded with tiny pockets where air was trapped during baking. The color inside is slightly darker than modern wheat bread, more golden brown, and when you bring it close to your nose, it smells intensely of grain, earthy and satisfying. The bread serves multiple purposes. It's food in itself, providing most of the calories this family will consume, but it's also a utensil, used to scoop up the lentil porridge, to soak up the liquid, to make eating easier. Every bit will be eaten, nothing wasted, because waste is unthinkable. When food represents hours of labor, they eat slowly, without rush, savoring each bite, chewing thoroughly. There is no hurry here. The rhythm of life in ancient Egypt is measured by the sun, by the seasons, by the flood of the Nile. The minutes and seconds that govern our modern lives do not exist here. There is only now, only this moment, only the warmth of the fire and the taste of simple food and the presence of family. Take a breath with me. In through your nose and out through your mouth. Feel yourself sinking deeper. Feel the ancient peace settling over you. You are here. You are safe. The family eats in comfortable silence, broken only by small sounds. The scraping of wooden spoons against clay bowls, a rhythmic sound like soft percussion. The quiet tearing of bread, the resistance and then the give. The occasional crackle of the fire as a pocket of moisture explodes into steam. The soft sounds of eating, of chewing, of swallowing, of contentment. Outside the courtyard, beyond the thick mud brick walls, the village is settling into its own evening rhythm. Listen carefully, and you can hear the sounds of the neighborhood, floating over walls and through doorways, carried on the evening breeze, the distant bleating of a goat being led to its pen for the night, protesting slightly, its voice rising and falling, the sound of children playing in another courtyard, their voices faint, but carrying that unmistakable quality of childhood joy, a woman singing, perhaps a lullaby to a baby. The melody, ancient and wordless, rising and falling like the Nile itself. Her voice is untrained but sweet, carrying easily through the still evening air. The song has no beginning and no ending, just circles back on itself, a loop of sounds that could continue forever. The padding of bare feet on dusty pathways, someone walking home late from the fields, the soft conversation of neighbors, probably two women who have stopped to chat, their voices rising and falling in the rhythm of gossip and shared stories. And now, as the evening deepens, a new sound begins to emerge. It starts softly, almost imperceptibly, just a few individual voices. Then more join in, and more, until the sound becomes a chorus that will continue through the night. The crickets, their chirping is one of the oldest night sounds, unchanged for millions of years. The same sound that accompanied the dinosaurs, the same sound that will continue long after humans are gone. The cricket song is rhythmic, pulsing, with a frequency that seems designed to lull the mind into relaxation. It's not a single note, but a complex weaving of sounds, high-pitched and constant, rising and falling in waves. Once you become aware of it, it's hard to ignore, and it's not unpleasant. It becomes a blanket of sound, wrapping around you, filling the spaces between other sounds. Above all these sounds, beneath them, woven through them, there is another sound, so constant that the family no longer consciously notices it. The sound of the Nile. It is perhaps 100 paces from this house, beyond the narrow fields, beyond the date palms that mark the edge of cultivation. The great river moves always, eternally. Its water slides past reeds and rocks, laps at muddy banks, gurgles through channels. It is a whisper and a murmur, a liquid presence that underlies all life here. The people who live beside the river hear it always, so constantly that they no longer consciously notice it. But it is there, in their dreams, in their bones, in their very sense of who they are. They are children of the Nile. Every Egyptian is a child of this great river. Without the Nile, there would be only desert, only sand and death. With the Nile, there is everything that matters. Young Khonsu finishes his food first, as boys often do, his appetite large, his body growing, demanding fuel. He tilts his bowl to his mouth, drinking the last of the broth, not wanting to waste a drop. A single drop escapes down his chin. and his mother reaches over with her thumb and wipes it away. It's one of 1,000 small touches she gives her children each day, each one a tiny declaration of care. Nefertari is slower, picking at her bread, pulling it into small pieces. She's getting full, her small stomach reaching capacity, but she knows she should finish. Her eyelids are growing heavy now, drooping despite her best efforts. The long day of play is catching up with her. She blinks slowly, fights to keep her eyes open, loses the fight for a moment, and her head drops forward, then startles herself awake again. When the meal is finished, Mutemwia collects the bowls. She stacks them carefully, one inside the other, and carries them to the corner where a large clay basin sits on a low stone. She pours water from a jug into the basin, the water splashing and sloshing. Then she begins to rinse the bowls, and here she uses a technique that has been used in Egypt for thousands of years. She takes sand from a small basket kept near the basin, fine river sand that has been sifted to remove pebbles, and she uses this as an abrasive to scrub away the food residue. The sand is remarkably effective, more effective than any soap, scouring the porous clay clean. She takes a handful of wet sand and rubs it in circles inside the bowl, applying pressure. The sand makes a soft scratching sound against the clay, a gentle grinding sound that is oddly soothing. She works methodically, scrubbing each bowl, then each spoon. The water quickly becomes cloudy, grey with sand and food particles. She rinses each bowl again with clean water, holding it up to catch the firelight, checking that it's truly clean. Only when satisfied does she set each bowl upside down on a woven reed tray to dry. By morning, they'll be completely dry, the porous clay having given up its moisture to the dry night air. A man that rises from his mat and stretches. His joints make small popping sounds. He walks to the small shrine of beds carved into the wall. From a tiny bowl near the shrine, he takes a pinch of incense, just a few grains. The incense is precious, one of the most valuable substances in his household. He sprinkles it onto the coals at the edge of the hearth. Immediately a thin thread of smoke rises, different from the cooking smoke, more refined, more intentional. The smoke rises straight and true, carrying with it a sweet resinous smell that fills the courtyard. The scent is myrrh, one of the most precious substances known to the ancient world, imported from the land of Punt, far to the south. Myrrh has a complex smell, sweet and bitter at once, resinous and aromatic, slightly medicinal, but in a pleasant way. The smoke curls upward, twisting and turning, making complex patterns in the air as it rises, dissipating into the darkening sky. This smoke is the messenger, the bridge between earth and heaven, between mortal and divine. What rises as smoke reaches the gods and becomes blessing, becomes protection, becomes grace. Amenhotep closes his eyes for a long moment. His lips move silently. He offers thanks for the day, for his work that went well, for his family's health, for the bread they have eaten. He gives thanks for the roof over their heads, for the walls that protect them. The children are called to prepare for sleep. Before we witness the evening preparations, let us remember that the customs described here reflect the beliefs and daily practices of ancient Egyptians, not modern medical or spiritual guidance. What follows is a window into how our ancestors lived and cared for themselves thousands of years ago. Mutemwia lights an oil lamp, one of several that the family owns, choosing one that is full of fresh oil. The lamp is a simple object, a clay vessel shaped like a small bowl with a pinched spout for the wick and a small handle on the side. It fits comfortably in her palm. The wick is made from twisted linen fibers, strips of old fabric, torn and twisted and dried. The wick floats in olive oil that half fills the lamp. She strikes a piece of flint against a piece of iron ore, creating sparks, catching one on a bit of dried moss that she keeps in a small clay pot for this purpose. The spark catches the tinder, which flares briefly, bright orange and smoking. She quickly uses this to touch the wick of the lamp. The flame catches after a moment, wavers, then steadies as the oil is drawn up through the wick, feeding the fire. The lamp gives off a gentle light, warm and yellow, soft-edged and flickering slightly, creating a pool of illumination perhaps 6 feet across. It also gives off a faint smell of burning oil. Slightly smoky but not unpleasant, clean and natural. It's a clean smell, honest, the smell of nights throughout history before electricity. She leads the children through the courtyard to one of the interior rooms, holding the lamp high to light the way. This is the family's sleeping chamber, modest and simple. The room is perhaps 10 feet by 10 feet, with whitewashed walls that glow softly in the lamplight, and a floor of packed earth covered with woven reed mats laid edge to edge. The air in here is different from outside, stiller, slightly warmer from retained heat. In one corner, there is a low platform, raised just slightly off the ground, perhaps 6 inches, built from mud brick and covered with multiple layers of woven mats. This is where Amenemhat and Mutemwia sleep. The children sleep on mats on the floor nearby, close enough to be protected, to be heard if they wake in the night. But before sleep can come, there are rituals to be performed. Rituals of the body that clean, prepare it for rest. Mutemwia sets the oil lamp on a small niche carved into the wall at shoulder height, clearly made for this specific purpose. The lamp sits securely there, and shadows dance on the walls, advancing and retreating with the movement of the flame. She retrieves a clay jar from its place in the corner, sealed with a piece of clean linen tied with cord. She unties the cord and removes the linen covering, revealing a pale, creamy substance inside. This is a cleansing paste that she makes herself, a mixture using ingredients that ancient Egyptians believed promoted cleanliness and health. The base is animal fat, rendered and purified until it's white and smooth. Mixed into this is natron, the natural salt harvested from the desert lakes, ground to a fine powder, and for scent, a small amount of crushed lotus petals. This cleansing paste represents how ancient people cared for their bodies with the materials available to them. The paste has a pleasant smell, slightly floral from the lotus, slightly alkaline from the natron. The consistency is smooth and creamy, like a very thick cream, and it warms slightly when touched, softening from body heat. Mutemwia kneels before young Nefertari. The little girl stands patiently before her mother, swaying slightly with tiredness, her eyes half closed. She knows this routine intimately, has experienced it every night of her life. She takes a small amount of the cleansing paste on her fingertips and begins to rub it gently on her daughter's arms, starting at the shoulders and working down to the fingertips. The paste is cool against the skin at first contact, slightly gritty from the natron particles, but it warms quickly from skin contact. She works with practiced efficiency and gentleness, her hands moving in smooth circles, covering all the exposed skin with a thin, even layer. She massages as she works, pressing gently on tired muscles. When every surface is covered with the paste, she takes a damp linen cloth from a bowl of clean water and begins to wipe it away. The cloth is rough woven, providing gentle abrasion. She wipes in long, smooth strokes. Working systematically, the cloth comes away darkened with dirt, grey with stone dust and garden soil. She rinses the cloth frequently, squeezing it out, and continues wiping until the child's skin emerges clean and smooth, glowing faintly in the lamplight. Next is Khonsu's turn. The boy comes forward reluctantly, wanting to protest that he can wash himself, that he's too old for this, but knowing better than to voice this objection, he stands before his mother, trying to look dignified, trying to maintain his composure. He submits to the process with less patience than his sister, shifting from foot to foot, but he stands as still as he can manage, while his mother cleans him with the same gentle thoroughness. When finished, both children are cleaned, their skin soft and glowing, their bodies prepared for sleep. Mutemwia turns her attention now to their heads. Though shaved smooth, there is always maintenance to be done. She runs her hands over each small skull, feeling for anything unusual, checking the skin for irritation or injury. Finding nothing concerning, she takes a tiny amount of oil from another small jar. This is castor oil, thick and golden, used by ancient Egyptians for skincare. She massages it into their scalps with small circular motions, her fingers moving gently. The oil soothes the skin, as ancient people believed, protects it from constant sun exposure and dry air. Both children begin to relax under her touch, their bodies softening, their breathing slowing, their eyes closing. There's something about a scalp massage that is universally soothing, that triggers relaxation responses. They sway slightly on their feet, nearly asleep already. There is something ancient and universal in this scene. A mother's hands caring for her children at day's end, preparing them for sleep, tending to their bodies with love and skill. Across all time, across all cultures, this moment has existed in some form. The tenderness, the routine, the loving touch. It is a thread that connects us across 3,000 years. Amenem enters the sleeping chamber now, ducking slightly to pass through the doorway. He carries with him a small wooden box, simple but well made, with a fitted lid. This box contains his personal grooming tools, his treasured possessions. Inside are a small bronze razor, its blade worn smooth from years of sharpening and use, a whetstone, a small pumice stone, and a small pot of scented oil, sealed with linen, made from moringa seeds with a hint of cinnamon bark. Like most Egyptian men of any class or station, Amenemhat keeps his face clean-shaven. This practice reflected ancient Egyptian values of cleanliness and order. Facial hair was associated with foreigners, with those who lived beyond Egypt's borders. To be bearded was to be other, to be outside civilization. To be clean-shaven was to be Egyptian, to be civilized. He takes the bronze razor in his right hand, feeling its familiar weight. Using a small bronze mirror, polished until it shines, he positions himself to see his face clearly in the lamplight. The mirror is small, barely larger than his palm, but highly polished and reflects clearly enough. He carefully shaves away the stubble that has grown during the day, working slowly and methodically, by feel as much as by sight. He needs no soap or cream or water for this. He simply shaves dry, the sharp blade scraping softly against his skin, making a sound like distant paper tearing, removing the dark stubble and leaving smooth skin behind. It's a skill developed through years of daily practice. He shaves his cheeks first, long smooth strokes, then his upper lip, short careful strokes, then his chin and jaw, working down to his neck. Occasionally, he dips the razor in a bowl of water to rinse it clean. When his face is smooth, he moves to the next step. He uses the pumice stone on his feet, those faithful servants that carry him through each day. He rubs the stone across the soles of his feet, working at the hard, cracked skin that builds up from walking barefoot. The pumice makes a soft, rasping sound as it works, and fine dust falls away, the dead skin being abraded off, revealing softer skin beneath. He's thorough, working on his heels, which are the worst, where the skin can become thick and cracked and painful if not maintained. Then the balls of his feet, then his toes. When finished, his feet are smoother, softer, ready for another day. This is practical maintenance, caring for the body parts that work hardest. Then comes the oil, the final step. Amenemhat opens the small pot and pours a small amount of the moringa oil into his palm. It is golden and slightly thick, carrying the warm, subtle scent of cinnamon that has been infused into it. He rubs his hands together, warming the oil, making it more fluid. Then he smooths it over his arms, working it into the skin with long strokes, covering every surface from shoulders to fingertips. The oil absorbs relatively quickly into his sun-dried skin, as ancient Egyptians practiced for skincare, leaving it supple and protected, gleaming slightly in the lamplight. He continues with his chest, his neck, his face, rubbing the oil in with circular motions. The scent of cinnamon fills the small room, warm and spicy and comforting. In the harsh climate of Egypt, oil use was an essential part of ancient Egyptian daily life for maintaining skin health. Mutanwia, having finished with the children who now stand clean and drowsy, tends to herself. She applies the cleansing paste to her own skin, using the same techniques, working with systematic thoroughness. She covers her arms, her legs, her shoulders, then wipes it away with a damp cloth. She pays special attention to her feet, washing them carefully in a basin, massaging oil into the tired muscles. Her feet deserve this care, deserve this attention. Next, she turns to her hair. She reaches up to remove the cord that has been holding it back all day. Her thick, dark hair falls loose around her shoulders, released from its constraint, heavy and slightly sweaty from being bound. She runs her fingers through it, working out the tangles gently, starting at the ends and working up to avoid breaking the hair. She checks for any insects. Finding none, she takes a small amount of scented oil, this one made from almonds, and carrying their sweet, nutty fragrance. She works the almond oil through the length of her hair, from roots to tips, as was customary in ancient Egypt for hair care. The oil makes her hair shine in the lamplight, catching and reflecting the yellow flame light, makes it smooth and manageable, protects it from the drying effects of sun and air. When her hair is oiled and smooth, she plats it loosely into a single braid, her fingers moving with automatic ease. She ties the end with a piece of cord. The braid will keep her hair from tangling as she sleeps. She also prepares to apply kohl to her eyes now. The application of kohl was a universal practice in ancient Egypt, used by men, women, and children. It served multiple purposes in their belief system beyond aesthetics. Made from ground galena mixed with oil and soot, ancient Egyptians believed it offered protection for the eyes from harsh sun and dust. She keeps her kohl in a small alabaster jar, pale stone, carved thin enough to be translucent, beautiful in its simplicity. She removes the lid and dips the thin applicator into the jar, coating the tip with the black paste. Then she carefully lines her eyes with practiced precision, extending the line slightly beyond the outer corners. The kohl is dark, almost pure black, and it makes her eyes stand out dramatically, makes them luminous in the lamplight. Even preparing for sleep, she maintains this practice that connects her to her culture. Take another breath, deep and slow. Feel your body relaxing further. You are safe in this ancient place. Let go. Just let go. The children lie on their mats now. Nefertari is curled onto her side, one hand beneath her cheek. Her breathing has already deepened. Khonsu lies on his back, staring up at the dark ceiling, his eyes blinking slowly. He fights sleep, but his body is heavy, his mind drifting. Mutemwia spreads thin linen sheets over each child. The sheets are worn soft from their washings, thin enough to be almost transparent, but they're clean and familiar. She tucks the sheet gently around Nefertari, who murmurs something unintelligible in her half-sleep. She smooths the sheet flat across Khonshu and leans down to press a kiss to his forehead. Her lips are warm and soft. Khonshu's eyes finally close under this gesture. In the corner of the room, there is a small clay bowl of water, shallow and wide. Floating in it are several small lotus blossoms, picked from the Nile earlier in the day while they were still fresh. The lotus is sacred in Egypt, one of the most important symbols in the entire culture. It represents creation, rebirth, the sun rising from the primordial waters at the beginning of time. Each day the lotus closes its petals and sinks beneath the water as night comes. Each morning it rises again and opens to the sun, a daily cycle that mirrors the sun's journey. The scent of the lotus is delicate but pervasive, sweet and slightly intoxicating, with properties that encourage relaxation. It fills the room with a dreamy fragrance, softening the edges of reality, encouraging the letting go of waking consciousness. The scent mixes with the cinnamon from Amenemhat's oil, with the almond from Mutemwia's hair, creating a complex perfume that is the smell of this family's evening, the smell of preparation for sleep. The oil lamp continues to burn, its flame steady and small, a single point of light in the gathering darkness. The shadows it casts are gentle now, familiar, the shadows of home rather than threat. Outside, the night has fully arrived, the transition complete, the day ended and the night begun. The courtyard is dark, except for the faint glow of the dying fire. The stars above are brilliant, uncountable, spread across the sky. The Milky Way arches overhead, a river of stars. The Egyptians see it as the celestial Nile, flowing across the sky, just as the earthly Nile flows across the land. And in this quiet room, in this simple home, in this village beside the Nile, 3,000 years ago, a family prepares to surrender to sleep, just as you are preparing now. Your breathing synchronized with theirs, your heartbeat slowing, calming. You are here, and you are there. Time folds in on itself. Only this moment. Only this breath. Only this peace. Amen in heart. And Mutemwaya, do not go to sleep immediately, though the children are drifting now, and the hour is late. The adults have their own rituals still to complete, their own needs to address. Rituals of mind and spirit that connect them to forces larger than themselves, to the invisible world that surrounds this visible one. They move quietly back to the courtyard, leaving the oil lamp burning low in the sleeping chamber, so the children will not wake in complete darkness, so that if they wake frightened, there will be light to comfort them. The courtyard is cool now, beautifully cool after the oppressive heat of the day. The temperature has dropped, perhaps 20 degrees from its afternoon peak, and the air feels almost cold against skin that was hot all day. The change is shocking and delicious, making you want to stand still and simply feel it, to let the coolness wrap around you like a blessing. Above them, the stars are so bright, they seem close enough to touch, close enough to pluck from the sky like ripe fruit. There are more stars visible here than modern people can imagine, in this world before electric lights, before the glow that obscures the night sky in developed areas. The stars fill the sky from horizon to horizon, thousands upon thousands of them, more than anyone could count in a lifetime. They are a vast display that speaks of infinity and eternity, and the vastness of creation. Some are brilliant white, some have a blue tinge, some are slightly yellow or red. They seem to pulse and breathe, to be alive in a way that photographs can never capture. A member adds a few more pieces of fuel to the hearth fire, which has burned down to coals and needs refreshing. The fuel catches slowly, smouldering first, then flickering into small flames as the fire finds new life. It flares up briefly, casting dramatic shadows that leap across the walls before settling back into a steady glow. The firelight creates a small circle of warmth and illumination in the darkness, a protected space, a bubble of humanity in the vast darkness of night. Beyond that circle, the courtyard walls fade into shadow, barely visible, present more as felt presences than seen objects. The whitewash on the walls catches what little light there is, glowing faintly, marking the boundaries of their small world. Beyond the walls, the village lies dark and sleeping. Beyond the village, the desert stretches away to infinity, to the edges of the known world, to places where civilization ends and chaos begins. Tembuya brings out a small wooden tray, carrying it carefully, mindful of its precious contents. On it are several items, each one chosen for its significance, for its role in the ritual they are about to perform. There is a tiny loaf of bread, no larger than your thumb, specially made for this purpose, baked from the same dough as the family's bread, but shaped small and perfect. There is a small clay cup containing beer, thick and grainy, the everyday beverage of Egypt, but set aside for this sacred purpose. There are a few grains of incense, precious myrrh again, saved for this evening offering, and there is a small bundle of fresh herbs from the garden, probably coriander and dill, tied with a thread. These are offerings for the household gods and for the ancestors, the invisible family members who still care about the living, who still watch over them from the other side of death's thin veil. The offerings are small, modest, appropriate to the family's means, but they are given with sincerity and devotion. She places the tray on the ground before the small shrine of beds in the wall, setting it down gently, arranging it so the items are positioned properly, showing respect through careful placement. The dwarf god's face seems to flicker and dance in the firelight, his fierce expression somehow protective rather than frightening, his wide eyes watching over this family he has been charged to protect. Amenemhat joins her, lowering himself to kneel beside her, both of them facing the shrine, their shadows stretched long behind them, cast by the fire, making them seem larger than they are. Amenemhat speaks first, his role as head of household, giving him this privilege and responsibility. His voice is low, barely more than a murmur, a private conversation between mortals and the divine. He speaks in Middle Egyptian, that ancient language, and though we cannot understand every word, we can feel the intention, the sincerity, the reverence. He is thanking the gods for protecting his home, for keeping his family healthy through another day, for guiding his hands in his work so that he can provide. He is asking for continued blessings, for restful sleep untroubled by nightmares, for good dreams that might bring guidance or comfort. He is asking for protection through the night, when spirits walk more freely, when the boundaries between worlds grow thin, when dangers both physical and spiritual might threaten. He is acknowledging the presence of forces greater than himself, powers that can help or harm, asking humbly for their favor. Utemwia adds her own prayers. Her voice is softer than her husband's, more musical, rising and falling in a rhythm that is almost song-like, that has the cadence of poetry. She prays to Tara, the hippopotamus goddess, who protects women and children, especially during the dangerous time of childbirth. She thanks Tara for the health of Khonsu and Nefertari, for their laughter and their growth, for keeping them safe through another day of play. She asks for protection through the night, for peaceful sleep, for morning to come safely. Together they sprinkle the incense grains onto the fire. The sweet smoke rises immediately, differently from the cooking smoke or the fuel smoke, more refined, more purposeful. It curls and twists as it climbs toward the stars, making complex patterns in the air, visible against the darkness. Smoke is the medium through which prayers travel, the vehicle that carries words and intentions from earth to heaven, from mortal realm to divine realm. It rises and dissipates, becoming invisible, becoming spirit itself, carrying their hopes and fears and gratitude upward. They break off a small piece of the bread and place it at the base of the shrine, at the feet of the little beast figure. They pour a few drops of the beer onto the earth beside it, the liquid quickly soaking into the dry ground. These offerings will be left there through the night. By morning, the beer will have evaporated or soaked completely into the earth. Perhaps a bird will have taken the bread, or an insect, or it will simply dry in the sun. But that is as it should be. The offering has been made, the gesture completed. The intention is what matters, not what happens to the physical objects afterward. After the prayers, Amenemhat reaches for something else, something he keeps carefully wrapped and stored. A small papyrus scroll, no longer than his forearm, rolled tightly and tied with a cord. This is a collection of protective spells, written out by a scribe several years ago for a small fee. Words that ancient Egyptians believed created protection when spoken with proper intention. Words that held power, that could shape reality itself if spoken correctly. The spells are written in hieratic script, the cursive form of hieroglyphs used for everyday writing, rather than the formal hieroglyphs carved in stone. Amenemhat cannot read them himself fluently. He is a craftsman, not a scribe. But he knows these spells, has memorized them through nightly repetition, through years of reciting them as his father did before him and his grandfather before that. They are part of his inheritance, part of his responsibility as head of household. He unrolls the papyrus carefully, holding it close to the firelight, so he can see the writing, though he doesn't really need to see it anymore. The writing is in black ink, with occasional words in red for emphasis. The papyrus itself cream-colored, made from strips of the papyrus plant that grows in the Nile marshes. He begins to recite the spells aloud. His voice is steady, rhythmic, almost hypnotic. These are spells against serpents and scorpions, against illness, against nightmares, against the demons that might try to enter the house during the vulnerable hours of darkness. Each spell is a formula, words of power that, when spoken correctly, were believed to create a protective barrier, to weave a shield of safety around the home and family. In ancient Egypt, words were believed to have power, tangible power that could affect the physical world. According to their beliefs, the world itself was spoken into being by the god Pat, who conceived creation in his heart and spoke it through his tongue. To speak a spell was seen as participating in that same creative force, wielding the power of the divine word. Utemwaya listens, her eyes closed, her lips moving slightly, as she silently repeats the words after her husband. She is memorizing them too, adding them to her own store of protective knowledge, so that if needed she can speak them herself. In a world without modern medicine or security, without hospitals or police, these spells provided comfort, confidence, a sense of control in an uncertain world. And sometimes, that psychological protection was enough to help people sleep peacefully, to face the darkness without fear. When the spells are finished, Amenemhat rolls the papyrus carefully and ties it again with the cord. He places it carefully in a small niche in the wall, where it will be safe from moisture and insects. where it can be retrieved tomorrow night, and the night after that, and every night. The protective work is done. The invisible shield has been raised. Now comes the time for connection, for the softer rituals of family life, for the simple human need to be together, to communicate, to share. They settle more comfortably on their reed mats, sitting close to the fire but not too close, finding the perfect distance where the warmth is pleasant without being too hot. The fire has burned down to glowing coals now, pulsing gently with heat, breathing light and warmth into the cool night air. The light it gives is softer than flame light, redder, more intimate. It paints their faces in warm tones, makes their eyes shine, creates an atmosphere of closeness and safety. Amenem reaches out and takes Mutemwea's hand. Their fingers intertwine naturally, automatically, her smaller hand nested in his larger one. It is a simple gesture, repeated thousands of times in their marriage, performed without thought or planning, but it never loses its meaning. It says without words, I am here, you are here, we are together. Whatever comes, we face it as one. They sit in silence for a while, listening to the night, comfortable with each other, needing no words to fill the space. From somewhere in the distance comes the sound of a flute, someone playing a simple melody, perhaps unable to sleep, or keeping watch, or simply expressing something that needs expression. The notes are pure and clear in the darkness, carrying easily through the still air. Mutemwea begins to hum along with the flute, her voice low and soft, adding harmony to the distant melody. After a while, Amenemhat speaks. His voice is conversational, intimate, unguarded. The voice he uses only with his wife. He tells her about his day, about the amulet he carved, a small scarab beetle in limestone. Mutemwea listens, validating his experience, holding space for him to process his day. When he is finished, she tells him about her own day, about grinding grain, about washing clothes in the Nile, and about the children who are growing so fast. They fall silent again. The flute has stopped playing. The village has grown quieter still, settling deeper into sleep. Most families are inside now, lying on their mats, surrendering to rest. Only the sounds of animals remain, the occasional bark of a dog somewhere far away, the chirping of crickets, that constant pulse that has become the voice of the night itself. Mutemwea leans her head against her husband's shoulder. They stand a moment longer, breathing the night air, feeling the coolness on their skin, listening to the reeds whisper and the water move and the crickets sing their ancient song. They watch the moonlight dance on the river's surface, watch the palm fronds sway against the stars, feel the vastness of the desert pressing against the small bubble of human life. Then, without speaking, without needing words, they turn together and go back inside. Breathe with them now. Feel the deep contentment of this moment. Feel the love that exists here, simple and strong. Feel the connection to something larger, something eternal. You are safe. You are at peace. All is well. Amenemhat and Mutemwea walk through the darkness to the sleeping chamber. They know the way by feel, by memory. The oil lamp in the sleeping chamber is still burning, but the flame is tiny now, the oil nearly consumed. In its faint light, they can see their children, both deeply asleep now, both completely surrendered to rest. Amenemhat and Mutemwea lie down on their sleeping platform. They lie facing each other, close enough that their breath mingles in the small space between them. Everything that needs to be said has been said, and now, finally, sleep comes for them. The lamp flickers once, twice, and then goes out. The darkness is complete now, total and absolute. But it is not frightening. It is the darkness of safety, of home, of family. It is the darkness that allows rest, that allows dreams, that allows the body and mind to heal and restore themselves. You are there with them now, in that dark room, in that ancient time. Feel the stillness, feel the peace. The house is silent now, wrapped in the deep stillness that comes only in the heart of night, when even the restless have surrendered to sleep, when the world itself seems to pause and breathe. The darkness inside the sleeping chamber is absolute, a darkness so complete that sight becomes irrelevant, meaningless. The family exists now only as breathing, as warmth, as presence felt rather than seen. 4 sets of lungs rising and falling, 4 hearts beating their steady rhythms, 4 bodies resting on ancient mats in a mud brick house beside the Nile. Outside, the night continues its slow progression toward dawn, though dawn is still many hours away, still far beyond the eastern horizon, where the sun waits in the underworld, traveling through the 12 hours of night in his sacred bark. The stars wheel overhead in their eternal dance, following paths they have followed since before humans existed to watch them, since before the earth itself cooled and solidified. The constellations that the Egyptians know and name move across the sky with infinite patience, marking time in a way that transcends human understanding. The crickets continue their song, that endless pulse of sound that defines warm nights everywhere, that has defined warm nights for millions of years. The sound is so constant that it becomes almost like silence, like a baseline against which other sounds are measured. It fills the spaces between thoughts, between breaths, between heartbeats. If you listen very carefully, you can hear individual cricket voices within the chorus, each one slightly different in pitch and rhythm, each one contributing to the collective song that rises from the grass and reeds and gardens throughout the village. The Nile moves eternally, never stopping, never pausing, flowing northward toward the great delta and the Mediterranean Sea beyond. Its waters have traveled from deep in Africa, from the mountains where the rains fall, through cataracts and rapids, through desert and farmland, carrying silt and life, carrying the promise of another year's survival. The water that passes this village tonight will be at the sea in a few days, mixing with salt water, becoming part of the vast ocean that surrounds all lands. But tonight it is here, sliding past the banks, whispering through the reeds, making its soft liquid sounds that speak of movement and permanence existing together, of change and constancy, woven into a single flowing reality. In the sleeping chamber, Nefertari dreams. Her small face twitches slightly, her eyelids fluttering as her eyes move beneath them, watching whatever scenes play out in her sleeping mind. Perhaps she dreams of playing with friends, running through the village streets, her feet light and quick on the dusty earth. Perhaps she dreams of the Nile, of wading in the shallows where the water is warm and safe, where small fish dart away from her feet, where the mud squishes between her toes. Perhaps she dreams of her mother's hands, gentle and sure, or of bread fresh from the fire, or of the stars that she stared at before sleep took her. Children's dreams are different from adult dreams, more vivid, more immediate, less burdened by the weight of experience and memory. They dream in primary colors, in simple emotions, in scenarios that shift and change without needing logical connection. A boat becomes a bird, becomes a flower, becomes her father's face, all in the space of a single dream moment, and it all makes perfect sense in the dream logic that governs sleep. She murmurs something, a single syllable that might be a word or might just be sound, then settles deeper into her mat, her breathing returning to the deep steady rhythm of profound sleep. Khonsu sleeps without dreaming, or at least without dreams that reach his conscious awareness, without dreams that leave traces he will remember in the morning. His sleep is the heavy, complete sleep of a growing child, his body using this time to build itself, to add bone and muscle, to process the day's experiences into memory and learning. His brain prunes unnecessary connections and strengthens important ones, consolidating what he learned today about his father's work, about the world around him, about his place in it. His body releases growth hormones, repairing small damages from the day's activity, building him incrementally taller, stronger, older. On the sleeping platform, Mutemwea dreams more complexly. Her dreams weave together memories and worries, plans and fears, desires and responsibilities. She dreams of grinding grain, but the grain is endless, flowing like water from the upper stone, never diminishing no matter how long she grinds. She dreams of the Nile rising too high, flooding not just the fields but the village itself, the water coming into her house, and she is trying to save her children, but they keep slipping away like fish. Then the dream shifts, and she is young again, unmarried, standing with other girls beside the river, laughing about something she cannot quite remember, feeling the freedom of being not yet burdened with responsibility. Her sleeping face shows traces of these dreams, small movements around her eyes and mouth, her forehead creasing slightly, then smoothing again. But despite the complexity of her dreams, despite the anxieties that surface in sleep when the conscious mind cannot push them down, her body remains relaxed, her breathing steady. Some part of her knows she is safe, knows her children are beside her, knows her husband's hand still loosely holds hers. The dreams flow through her, but do not disturb her rest, do not pull her back to waking. Amenemhat's dreams are of work, as they often are. His hands know, even in sleep, the movements they make during waking hours. He dreams of carving a stone beneath his chisel, of the satisfaction of removing exactly the right amount of material to reveal the form hidden within. He dreams of a commission he hopes to receive, a larger piece for a temple, something that would bring not just payment, but prestige, recognition of his skill. But even in the dream, he feels the fear that comes with such hopes, the worry that he is not good enough, that he will make a mistake, that he will disappoint the customer and damage his reputation. Then his dream shifts, and he is a boy again, learning from his own father, watching those skilled hands demonstrate techniques, feeling the sting of correction when he made mistakes, feeling the warmth of praise when he did well. His father has been dead for 5 years now, but in dreams he is alive and strong, demonstrating how to hold the chisel at exactly the right angle, how to read the grain of the stone, how to be patient and let the work reveal itself slowly. Amenemhat sleeping. Face softens with this dream, some tension releasing from his jaw, his breathing becoming even deeper. Take a breath with them now, deep and slow. Feel yourself sinking deeper into rest, deeper into this ancient night. You are held by the same darkness that holds them, the same eternal night that has held sleepers for all of human history. Breathe in slowly through your nose and out through your mouth. Let go of any remaining tension. Let yourself drift. The night deepens further. Time loses its meaning in the darkness, becomes irrelevant, becomes just a concept that has no bearing on this moment of rest. Minutes might be hours, hours might be minutes. There is only now, only the steady breathing of sleep, only the darkness and the stars wheeling overhead, and the river flowing, and the crickets singing their endless song. The moon has climbed higher in the sky, smaller now and brighter, its light still painting the world outside in silver and shadow, still transforming the ordinary into something magical. In the courtyard, the last embers of the fire have died completely, now going cold, returning to ash. The 3 hearthstones sit in darkness, still faintly warm if you were to touch them, but cooling steadily, releasing the last of their stored heat into the night air. By morning they will be cold, ready to support a new fire, to begin the cycle again. The courtyard floor has cooled too, the packed earth giving up the day's heat to the vast cold sink of the night sky, radiating it away into space where it will never return. The water jars in the corner sit quietly, their contents still, undisturbed. The porous clay continues its slow work of keeping the water cool through evaporation, tiny amounts of moisture seeping through the clay walls and evaporating into the dry air. The process of evaporation drawing heat away, creating that ancient cooling effect that humans discovered thousands of years before electricity, before refrigeration, before any of the technologies we now take for granted. The water inside the jars is probably several degrees cooler than the air around them, a small miracle of physics and pottery. The grain storage jars sit sealed and dark, protecting their precious contents from moisture and insects and mice. Inside them, the barley and emmer wheat kernels rest in their thousands, each one a tiny package of potential life, each one capable of sprouting and growing if given water and soil and sun, each one containing within its small structure all the instructions needed to create a full plant. But for now they are dormant, sleeping like the family sleeps, waiting. Some of these kernels will become bread in the coming days, ground between stones until they are flour, mixed with water and salt, baked on hot stones until they are food, sustenance, life itself in edible form. On the wall, the small Beth shrine sits in darkness. The fierce protective dwarf god, invisible now, but still present, still doing his work of guarding this house and family, still frightening away evil spirits with his protruding tongue and his fierce expression. The offerings left earlier remain where they were placed, the bread becoming drier in the night air, the beer long since soaked into the earth or evaporated. But the gesture has been made, the respect shown, the relationship between mortal and divine honored. That is what matters in Egyptian spirituality, the maintaining of proper relationships, the giving of what is due, the acknowledgement of forces greater than human. Above the courtyard, the sky is a dome of black velvet sewn with diamonds, thousands upon thousands of stars burning with ancient light, light that left those distant suns years ago, decades ago, centuries ago, traveling through the vast emptiness of space to finally reach this small village beside the Nile, to be seen by human eyes, to inspire wonder and worship and navigation and story. The Egyptians see patterns in these stars, see gods and animals and objects, see the celestial realm where the gods dwell and where the blessed dead go after passing through the trials of judgment. They see Orion, which they call Sa, and associate with Osiris, the god of death and resurrection, the god who was killed and dismembered and brought back to life, who rules over the underworld and judges the dead. They see Sirius, the brightest star, which they call Sopdet, the herald of the Nile's flood, the star whose heliacal rising each year marks the beginning of the new year, the star that is associated with Isis, the great goddess, sister and wife of Osiris, mother of Horus, the perfect mother, the ideal woman. When Sopdet appears in the dawn sky each year, after being invisible for 70 days, it signals that the flood is coming, that the Nile will soon rise, that the cycle of life will begin again. These stars have been watched by humans for countless generations, have guided travelers across deserts, have marked the seasons, have told stories without words, have connected the earth to the heavens. The same stars that shine on this sleeping family tonight have shone on their ancestors for thousands of years and will shine on their descendants for thousands more, unchanging, eternal, constant. There is something deeply comforting in this, in the reliability of the stars, in their refusal to change, in their steady presence night after night, year after year, millennium after millennium. In the fields beyond the village, between the houses and the river, crops are growing slowly in the dark, invisible work happening in the soil and within the plants themselves. Barley shoots are pushing up through the earth, seeking light, their roots spreading down and out, seeking water and nutrients. Onions are swelling beneath the ground, layer upon layer, forming around central cores. Flax plants are growing tall, their stems that will be harvested and processed into linen, pounded and combed until the fibers separate, then spun into thread and woven into fabric, transformed from plant into clothing through countless hours of skilled labor. The soil here is black, different from any soil anywhere else in the world. Black from the Nile's annual gift of silt, that rich mixture of volcanic ash and decomposed organic matter and minerals carried from the heart of Africa. This black soil is why Egypt exists, why civilization could flourish here in the midst of vast desert. The Egyptians call their country Kemet, which means the black land, distinguishing it from Deshret, the red land, the desert that surrounds the narrow green ribbon of life along the Nile. Black and red, life and death, fertility and barrenness, existing side by side, separated by a line, sometimes only 100 paces wide. The palm trees along the river's edge stand dark and silent, their fronds hanging still in the calm air. Day palms, the trees that give sweet fruit and shade and wood for building, trees that can survive on very little water once established, their roots reaching deep, finding moisture far below the surface. These trees are valuable, tended carefully, their fruit harvested and dried for storage, providing sweetness through the year, providing energy, providing trade goods. A single mature date palm can produce hundreds of pounds of fruit each year for decades, a long-term investment that pays consistent returns. Now let us pause in our journey through this ancient night to share some gentle knowledge about the world these people inhabit. Small facts offered softly, carefully, like stones placed in a calm pool, creating ripples, but not disturbing the essential peace. We will speak of ordinary things, daily things, the small details that made up life in the 18th dynasty of Egypt. Facts that require no effort to hear, that wash over you like gentle waves, that you may remember or forget as you choose. Because remembering is not the goal here, only relaxing, only drifting, only letting go. Bread in ancient Egypt was not like our modern bread. light and airy and soft. It was dense and heavy, made from emmer wheat or barley, grains that had not been selectively bred for thousands of years like modern wheat has been. The flour was coarse, often containing bits of stone from the grinding process, small particles of the stone grinding wheels that were slowly worn away with use. This stone dust in the bread wore down teeth over time, causing dental problems that were nearly universal among adult Egyptians. By middle age, most people had teeth worn nearly flat, from years of chewing bread that contained tiny abrasive particles. But bread was still the staff of life, the foundation of every meal, the primary source of calories. An average Egyptian might eat 2 or 3 pounds of bread each day, supplementing it with beer, onions, dates, and occasionally fish or duck. Bread was so central to life that the Egyptian hieroglyph for bread became the symbol for all offerings, for sustenance itself. To make bread was to make life. To share bread was to share life. Bread carried meaning beyond nutrition, beyond simple fuel for the body. Beer in ancient Egypt was thick and nutritious, more like a liquid bread than like modern beer, cloudy and slightly sweet, containing bits of grain, providing calories and vitamins, and a mild alcohol content that made questionable water safer to drink. It was made by partially baking bread, then crumbling it into water and allowing it to ferment naturally from wild yeasts in the air. The result was drunk through straws, often through pottery or metal straws that filtered out the larger grain particles, allowing the liquid to be consumed while leaving the solids behind. Beer was consumed by everyone, every day, children included, though in smaller amounts. It was payment for labor, offering to gods, social lubricant, and essential nutrition, all wrapped into one amber, grainy beverage. The linen that clothed this family came from flax plants grown in the black soil of Egypt, plants that grew tall and straight, their blue flowers creating fields of color in spring. The flax was harvested by pulling it up by the roots to preserve the full length of the fibers, then left to restorative, which means to rot partially in water, breaking down the material between the fibers so they could be separated. Then came the beating, the pounding that separated the fibers from the core of the plant, work that was hard and repetitive, that filled the air with dust and required strong arms and patience. Then came the combing, drawing the fibers through progressively finer combs until they were smooth and parallel and ready for spinning. Then women would spin the fibers into thread using simple drop spindles. The spindles spinning and dropping, pulling the fibers out and twisting them, creating thread that was fine or coarse depending on how it was spun. Then came the weaving, the interlacing of warp and weft threads on looms, creating fabric. The finest Egyptian linen was so fine it was almost transparent, so light it felt like air, valuable enough to be traded across the Mediterranean, prized by Greeks and Romans and traders from distant lands. The Nile floods came with remarkable regularity, beginning each year in midsummer as the monsoon rains fell far to the south in the Ethiopian highlands. The rains that fed the Blue Nile and the Afara River, sending a pulse of water north, a wave that took weeks to reach Egypt, arriving in June or July, rising steadily through August and September, reaching its peak usually in September, then gradually receding through October and November, leaving behind its gift of black silt, the foundation of Egyptian civilization. The flood was so reliable, so predictable, that the Egyptian calendar was based on it. The year divided into 3 seasons of 4 months each: Hachit, the flood season; Perit, the growing season; and Shemu, the harvest season, an eternal cycle that governed all life. But some years the flood was too low, and fields could not be properly irrigated, and hunger came. Other years it was too high, washing away villages, destroying homes, drowning animals and people, bringing disaster instead of blessing. The ideal flood was measured carefully at milometers, stone structures built into the riverbank with marked gradations showing the water level. Officials would measure and record, would calculate taxes based on the height of the flood, because a higher flood meant more land could be planted and a better harvest would come, meaning more taxes could be collected. The flood height determined prosperity, determined life itself. Breathe gently now. Let these soft facts wash over you without effort. You need not remember any of this. Just let the words flow past like the Nile itself, carrying you, supporting you, requiring nothing from you. The gods of Egypt were many and complex, their relationships and stories woven into an intricate mythology that varied from place to place, from time to time, that contradicted itself freely because it was never meant to be a single coherent system, but rather a collection of local beliefs, regional preferences, family traditions, and personal devotions, all existing together. These, the dwarf god watching over this family's courtyard, was a latecomer to the Egyptian pantheon, probably adopted from Nubian or Sudanese beliefs, but he became incredibly popular because he protected the things that mattered most to ordinary people: homes, children, pregnant women, childbirth, joy, music, and intimate relations. Unlike most Egyptian gods who were distant, formal, requiring temple worship, these was intimate, personal, present in the home itself. The other gods were more remote, dwelling in great temples, requiring priests and rituals and formal offerings, existing on a scale that exceeded ordinary human understanding. Ra, the sun god, who sailed across the sky each day in his golden bath, who fought the serpent Apophis each night in the underworld, ensuring that the sun would rise again, that the cycle would continue, that chaos would not triumph over order. Osiris, lord of the dead, the green-skinned god who sat in judgment, weighing hearts against the feather of truth, determining who would proceed to paradise and who would be devoured by Ammit, the composite monster who waited hungry beside the scales. Isis, the great goddess, the perfect wife and mother, the magician who knew the secret names of gods, who resurrected her murdered husband, who protected her son Horus from countless dangers, who represented everything good and nurturing and powerful about femininity. Thoth, the ibis-headed god of wisdom and writing, who invented hieroglyphs, who recorded the results of the judgment of the dead, who represented knowledge and learning and magic, and so many others, hundreds of gods and goddesses, each with their own stories and responsibilities, and sacred animals and temples, a vast divine structure that mirrored the human structure of pharaohs and priests and scribes and officials. The 18th dynasty, this time we are visiting tonight, was one of the golden ages of Egyptian civilization, a period of wealth and power and artistic achievement that has rarely been matched. This was the time when Egypt's empire reached its greatest extent, when armies marched south into Nubia and north into Syria and Palestine, when tribute flowed into Thebes from a dozen conquered lands, when the treasuries overflowed with gold and silver, when great temples were built and decorated with unprecedented splendor. This was the time of Hatshepsut, the female pharaoh who ruled successfully for over 20 years, who sent trading expeditions to the mysterious land of Punt, who built her magnificent mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari. This was the time of Thutmose III, the warrior pharaoh who conducted 17 military campaigns, who expanded Egypt's borders further than ever before, who brought back exotic plants and animals from foreign lands to be planted and kept in gardens, who left detailed records of his battles carved into temple walls. This was the time that led to Amenhotep III, who would preside over perhaps the wealthiest period in all Egyptian history, and to his son, the revolutionary Akhenaten, who would temporarily overturn 3,000 years of religious tradition to worship a single god, the sun disk Akhenaten, only to have his reforms undone after his death. And this was the time that would lead eventually to the boy king Tutankhamun, whose intact tomb, discovered in 1922, would reveal to the modern world the incredible wealth and artistry of this period, the gold and jewels and furniture and clothes that had lain undisturbed for over 3,000 years in a sealed tomb in the Valley of the Kings. But all of that is still to come, still decades in the future for the family sleeping in this humble house tonight. They live in the golden time, not knowing it is golden, simply living their daily lives, doing their work, raising their children, making their offerings, sleeping their sleep beneath the ancient stars. The materials of daily life in this time were simple but well crafted, made by skilled hands, each object the result of considerable labor and expertise. The clay pots used for cooking and storage were made by local potters who had learned their trade through years of apprenticeship, who knew how to prepare clay, how to build coils or throw on a wheel, how to smooth surfaces, how to fire pots in kilns heated by dung fuel, achieving temperatures high enough to harden the clay into permanent form. Each pot was handmade, unique, bearing the marks of the hands that shaped it, the fingerprints in the clay, the variations in thickness and shape that told of human manufacture. The wooden objects in the house, the stools and boxes and utensils, were made from precious wood. Precious because Egypt had very few trees that produced good timber. Most wood had to be imported from Lebanon, the famous cedars of Lebanon that were prized throughout the ancient world, or from other distant lands, making wood expensive and valuable. Local wood came from acacia trees, from sycamore figs, from date palms, woods that were harder to work, less even grained, but still serviceable for everyday objects. A simple wooden stool represented days of work, from cutting the tree, to shaping the pieces, to joining them together with wooden pegs or leather bindings, to smoothing the surfaces with sand and stones. The reed mats that covered the floors and served as beds were woven from papyrus reeds harvested from the marshes, those vast wetlands that then existed where the Nile spread out in its delta, and in areas along its course where the water moved slowly enough for reeds to grow. The papyrus plant was one of the most useful plants in Egypt, providing material for rope and baskets and boats and sandals, and, most famously, for the writing surface that would carry Egyptian knowledge and literature and records through the centuries. To make a mat, reeds were cut and dried, then woven in tight patterns, over and under, over and under, the work of skilled hands guided by eye and experience, creating something flexible yet durable, soft yet strong. Even the food they ate represented considerable labor. The bread required growing grain, harvesting it by hand with sickles, threshing it to separate the grain from the chaff by having animals walk over it, or beating it, winnowing it by tossing it in the air so the wind would blow away the light chaff while the heavy grain fell back down, then grinding it between stones with arms and shoulders and back, all working together in repetitive motion that could take an hour or more to produce enough flour for one day's bread. Then came the mixing with water and salt, the kneading, the shaping, the baking, each step requiring knowledge and skill. The onions and dates and lentils they ate had to be grown, tended, watered, harvested, prepared. The beer had to be brewed, a process taking days. The oil for lamps had to be pressed from olives or other oil-rich plants. Work that required heavy stones or beam presses, that required effort and time. Every object, every bite of food, every piece of clothing represented human labor, represented hours or days or weeks of work by skilled hands. There was no mass production, no factories, no machines, only human effort, human knowledge, human patience, creating everything needed for life. Let your breathing deepen now. Feel yourself sinking further into rest. The facts wash over you, requiring nothing, just gentle information floating past. You are so deeply relaxed now, so comfortable, so ready for complete rest. In through your nose, slowly. Out through your mouth, even more slowly. Perfect. The written language of ancient Egypt, those hieroglyphs that seem so mysterious and beautiful to modern eyes, was a complex system combining logographic, syllabic, and alphabetic elements. A writing system that could express the full complexity of the Egyptian language, that could record history and literature, religious texts and personal letters, tax records and magical spells. The word hieroglyph comes from Greek words meaning sacred carvings, because the Greeks who later ruled Egypt saw these symbols carved into temple walls and assumed they were purely religious or magical. But hieroglyphs were simply writing, as practical as any alphabet, used for everything writing is used for. The symbols included representations of people, parts of the body, animals, plants, buildings, tools, natural features, abstract signs, combinations, and variations, numbering over 700 distinct characters. Some signs represented sounds, phonetic values, either single consonants or combinations of consonants. Others represented whole words or concepts, logograms that stood for an entire idea. Reading hieroglyphs required not just knowing what each symbol meant, but understanding the context, the combination, the grammar, and structure of the language itself. It was a skill that took years to master, a skill that set scribes apart from common people, that gave them power and status, Most Egyptians could not read or write. Literacy was probably limited to less than 1% of the population, restricted mainly to scribes and priests and high officials and members of the royal family. For the vast majority, including our family sleeping peacefully tonight, written language was a mystery, a magic performed by specialists, something observed but not understood. They might recognize a few common symbols, might know that a particular cartouche contained a pharaoh's name, might understand that hieroglyphs carved on temple walls were sacred, but they could not read them, could not write them, lived their entire lives in an oral culture where knowledge was passed through speech and memory and demonstration rather than through written records. Yet this did not make them ignorant or simple. They possessed vast knowledge of practical skills, of plants and animals, of weather and seasons, of social relationships and religious obligations, knowledge encoded in their actions and traditions rather than in written texts. They knew how to build houses that stayed cool in summer and warm in winter, how to make bricks that would last decades, how to weave cloth and make pots and grow food in challenging conditions. They knew hundreds of practical things that modern people no longer know, skills that have been lost as technology changed, as different solutions to life's problems replaced old ones. The medical knowledge of ancient Egypt was surprisingly advanced in some ways, primitive in others. A mixture of accurate observation, effective treatments, and supernatural beliefs. Egyptian doctors could set broken bones, perform surgery, including trepanation, treat wounds and infections with various plant-based medicines, some of which actually worked because they contained compounds with genuine pharmaceutical properties. They used honey as an antiseptic, which modern science has confirmed is actually effective. They used moldy bread on wounds, unknowingly using an early form of antibiotic. They understood that the heart pumped blood through vessels, though they didn't understand the circulatory system fully. But they also believed that illness could be caused by evil spirits or demons entering the body, that spells and amulets could cure disease, that the gods could strike one down with illness as punishment for offenses. Medical treatment often combined practical interventions with magical spells, reciting protective formulas while applying bandages, wearing amulets while taking medicine, seeing no contradiction between physical and spiritual approaches to healing. In a world where the causes of disease were mysterious, where infection could kill quickly, where infant mortality was high and life expectancy was short, any approach that might help was worth trying. The average life expectancy in ancient Egypt was probably somewhere around 30 to 35 years. Though this number is misleading because it includes high infant and child mortality. Many children died before age 5 from disease, infection, accidents, malnutrition, all the dangers that modern medicine and sanitation have largely eliminated. But if you survived to adulthood, you had a reasonable chance of living into your 50s or even 60s, assuming you didn't die from accidents, childbirth, disease, or violence. The family sleeping tonight is fortunate, all 4 alive and healthy, a blessing that cannot be taken for granted in this time and place. A Menenhart, at around 30 years old, is approaching middle age by the standards of his time, his body bearing the marks of years of labor, his hands scarred and calloused, his back sometimes aching from bent posture over his work. Mutemwia, at perhaps 25, is in the prime of her life, strong and capable, though she has already lost 2 children in infancy, losses that left scars on her heart, that made her cherish Khonsu and Nefertari even more fiercely, that taught her the precarious nature of life, how quickly it can be given and taken away. The children still have that glow of health and energy that young bodies possess, but both parents know that danger is always present, that illness can strike without warning, that they must make prayers and offerings and protective spells to keep their children safe. The night continues its slow wheeling toward dawn, though dawn is still hours away, still beyond the horizon, still waiting in the future. Time flows like the Nile, steady and unstoppable, carrying all things forward, never backward, never pausing. The stars continue their ancient dance, moving so slowly that the movement is imperceptible from moment to moment, yet absolutely certain over hours. The moon climbs higher, smaller, and brighter, its light transforming the landscape outside into a black and silver world of dramatic contrasts, where everything is either illuminated or shadowed. where subtle greys and browns are erased by the intensity of contrast. In the sleeping chamber, the family continues their rest, their breathing slow and deep, their bodies completely relaxed, their minds wandering through dreams or resting in dreamless sleep. The darkness around them is complete, comforting, safe, a darkness that asks nothing, that simply exists, that provides the absence of stimulation necessary for true rest. The air in the room has cooled further, now actually comfortable after the heat of the day, the perfect temperature for sleep, cool enough to make the thin linen sheet welcome, not so cold as to cause discomfort. The smells in the room have settled and mingled, creating the unique scent of this space, this family, this moment. The faint floral sweetness of the lotus flowers still floats from the bowl in the corner, though the flowers themselves have closed their petals, sunk slightly lower in the water, following their nightly pattern of closure and descent. The spicy warmth of cinnamon lingers from a Menenhit's oil, mingling with the nutty sweetness of almond from Mutamaya's hair oil. The clean smell of linen, sun-dried and wind-aired. The earthen smell of the mud brick walls and the packed earth floor. The smell of earth itself, ancient and fundamental. Outside, in the courtyard, the night air carries different scents. The cooling earth, releasing its heat, carrying with it the dusty mineral smell of stone and sand. The faint smoke smell from fires throughout the village, most of which have died to ash by now, but whose scent still hangs in the air. The green smell of the fields, of growing plants transpiring moisture and releasing their subtle vegetable fragrances into the air. The water smell of the Nile, that complex perfume of river and mud and papyrus and fish and lotus, carried on the gentle night breeze that flows down from the north. The blessed wind that makes Egyptian summers bearable. The village around this house is mostly silent now. Most families deep in sleep, most fires extinguished, most voices stilled. But listen carefully, and you can still hear signs of life, small sounds that remind us that humanity is never completely quiet, never completely still. A baby crying somewhere, probably 3 or 4 houses away. The sound carrying clearly through the still night air, a sound of distress and need that will bring a mother from sleep to comfort. A dog barking, not alarmed, just alert, announcing its wakefulness to the night, probably hoping for scraps, for attention, for something to break the monotony of watching. The soft, rhythmic sound of someone snoring, probably an elderly man sleeping on a roof somewhere nearby, his breath making that distinctive rattling sound in his throat. The sound of relaxed tissues vibrating with each breath. The sound carries across rooftops and walls, not loud enough to wake anyone, just loud enough to be noticed if you're listening. A reminder that breathing continues, that life continues, that the village sleeps but lives. The scurrying sound of small animals, probably mice or rats, moving along walls, searching for dropped grain, for scraps, for anything edible. Those adaptable creatures that have lived alongside humans since humans first stored food, since we first created habitations that offered shelter and sustenance. Further away, from the river, an occasional sound of something splashing, probably a fish jumping, or a crocodile sliding into the water, or a hippopotamus surfacing to breathe. The Nile at night belongs to the large creatures, to the crocodiles and hippos that are dangerous to humans, that make the river a place of beauty, but also of threat, of life-giving water, but also of death. The Egyptians respect the river's power, respect the creatures that inhabit it, understand that the same water that gives life can also take it away, that nature is not benign but simply indifferent, providing opportunities and dangers in equal measure. The desert beyond the fields is completely silent, that profound silence that comes from vast emptiness, from land so barren that nothing lives there to make sound, where wind moves over bare rock and loose sand without finding anything to stir, to rustle, to disturb. It is a silence that is almost audible, that presses against the small sounds of the village, that reminds the Egyptians of what lies beyond their narrow strip of life, the vast empty quarter that surrounds them on both sides, extending west across the Sahara for thousands of miles, extending east to the Red Sea and beyond. The desert is death, is chaos, is everything that stands opposite to the order and fertility of the Nile Valley. Yet it is also necessary, is part of the Egyptian identity, is the contrast that makes the Black Land valuable, that makes water sacred, that makes life itself precious. Breathe with the sleeping family, now, slowly and deeply. Feel yourself drifting deeper still, letting go of the last threads of wakefulness. There is nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to remember or understand or accomplish. Just breathe and drift, breathe and drift. In through your nose, gentle and slow. Out through your mouth, even slower. Perfect. You are safe here, in this ancient night, held by the same darkness that has held sleepers for thousands of years, connected across time to this family beside the Nile, to all families in all times who have surrendered to sleep, who have trusted the night to hold them until morning comes. Sleep is one of the great universals of human experience, one of the things that connects us across all boundaries of time and culture and geography. Every human who has ever lived has known sleep, has experienced this daily surrender, this temporary death and rebirth, this journey into unconsciousness and back again, inside the sleeping chamber. Nefertari shifts slightly in her sleep, rolling from one side to the other, adjusting her small body on the mat, seeking comfort instinctively, even while unconscious. She settles again quickly, her breathing returning to its deep, steady rhythm, her face peaceful, her small hand uncurling slightly as her muscles release their last bit of tension. Children have an extraordinary capacity for complete relaxation, for total surrender to sleep, for letting go of everything and trusting that the world will still be there when they wake. Adults rarely achieve this level of complete letting go. Our sleep often lighter, more guarded, interrupted by worries and physical discomforts and the accumulated tensions of years. But tonight, in this ancient house, even the adults sleep deeply. Their day's work having been enough to produce genuine tiredness, the good tiredness that comes from physical labor, from bodies used as they were designed to be used, from minds occupied with immediate practical concerns rather than abstract worries. They have done their work, fulfilled their obligations, made their prayers, tended their children, maintained their home. They can rest now with clear consciences, with the satisfaction of duty done, with the peace that comes from lives lived in harmony, with the expectations of their culture, their family, their gods. The oil lamp in the sleeping chamber burned out hours ago, its reservoir of olive oil completely consumed, its wick burned down to nothing, its light extinguished. The lamp sits now in its wall niche, cool and dark, containing nothing but a thin layer of ash where the wick used to be, and a residue of oil coating the interior of the bowl. In the morning, Mutemria will clean it out, will refill it with fresh oil, will insert a new wick, will prepare it for tomorrow night's lighting, continuing the cycle that has been repeated every day for as long as oil lamps have existed. For thousands of years, the same simple technology used from ancient Sumeria to modern times, until electricity finally replaced flames as our primary source of artificial light. The walls of the house stand solid and strong. These walls made from the earth itself, from Nile mud and sand and straw and water, mixed and shaped and dried by the sun into bricks harder than stone. In this climate where rain almost never falls, where the only moisture is the annual flood and the river itself, these walls will stand for decades, possibly for generations if maintained properly, if the mud plaster on the exterior is renewed periodically, if the roof is kept in good repair, if the walls are protected from the rare rains that occasionally do fall, and when eventually these walls do crumble, returning to the earth they came from, new walls will rise in their place, new houses will shelter new families, and life will continue as it has always continued, generation following generation, each one living and working and sleeping and dying, passing on what they know to their children, who will in turn pass it to their children. The hours before dawn are the deepest part of night, the quietest hours, when sleep is most profound, when dreams are most vivid, when the body completes its essential work of repair and restoration. During these hours, the body lowers its temperature slightly, slows its metabolism, directs its energy toward healing and growth and memory consolidation, rather than toward activity and consciousness. Hormones are released following ancient patterns encoded in our genes, patterns that evolved over millions of years, patterns that serve essential functions we still don't fully understand, The immune system does much of its work during sleep, creating antibodies, repairing cellular damage, clearing away waste products that accumulated during the day's activity. The brain processes the day's experiences, moving important memories from short-term to long-term storage, discarding trivial information, strengthening important neural connections, and pruning unnecessary ones. The body grows during sleep, children adding bone and muscle, adults replacing dead cells with new ones, the constant cycle of death and renewal that keeps living things alive. All of this happens automatically, without conscious direction, the body knowing what to do, following instructions written into every cell. In the sleeping bodies of this ancient family, the same processes occur that occur in sleeping bodies today, that have occurred in sleeping bodies for as long as humans have existed, for as long as any animal has slept. Sleep is ancient, far older than humanity, far older than mammals even, perhaps as old as nervous systems themselves. The need for sleep seems to be built into the very nature of consciousness, of neural activity, as if brains cannot function continuously without periodic shutdown, without rest and restoration. We still don't fully understand why we sleep, why evolution didn't produce creatures that could remain alert and active continuously. But the fact that virtually all animals sleep suggests that sleep serves essential functions, that it's not a waste of time, but a necessary part of life. And now we come to the final part of our journey, the deepest part of the night, where words begin to fade, where even gentle facts and soft descriptions become too much, where only silence and breath and presence remain. We have traveled together through this ancient evening, have watched the sun set over the western desert, have seen the family return from their day's work, have witnessed their washing and their meal, their prayers and their body care, their quiet time together under the stars, their final preparations for sleep. We have heard the sounds of the night, the crickets and the Nile and the papyrus reeds rustling, the village settling into rest, the desert silence pressing in. We have smelled the scents of evening, bread and incense and lotus flowers, cinnamon and almond oil, the river and the earth and the cooling air. We have felt the textures of this ancient world, the rough mud brick and smooth linen, the reed mats and the cool water, the warmth of the fire and the coolness of the night. And now we simply rest here with them, in this moment that stretches across 3,000 years, connecting us to these people who lived so long ago, who were so different from us in so many ways, yet so similar in the ways that matter most. They loved their children as we love ours, worked hard to provide as we work, worried about the future as we worry, found comfort in rituals and routines as we do, needed rest and shelter and family and community as we do. The details of life change, technologies evolve, civilizations rise and fall, but human nature remains remarkably constant. The same needs and fears and hopes echoing across millennia. The night holds us all equally, the living and the dead, the ancient and the modern, the sleepers of 3,000 years ago and the sleepers of tonight. Darkness is the great equalizer, the universal experience, the time when differences fade and similarities emerge, when we are all just breathing bodies, seeking rest, just consciousness temporarily suspended, just animals following ancient patterns written into our biology. The stars that shine on you tonight are the same stars that shone on this family, the same moon, the same deep night, the same surrender to sleep. Breathe now, slowly, deeply, completely. Feel yourself letting go of the last thread connecting you to wakefulness. Feel yourself sinking into sleep, real sleep now, deep and restorative, the sleep your body needs. The story is ending, the journey complete, the family safely asleep in their ancient house. And you are safe in yours, held by your own walls, your own bed, your own night. Let the images fade, the sounds quiet, the sensations soften and blur and disappear. Let thoughts slow and stop, consciousness dim and darken. You are so deeply relaxed now, so ready for sleep, so held by the night. There is nothing left to follow, nothing left to attend to, nothing left to think about. Only breathing, only darkness, only rest. The family sleeps on through the night, will wake when morning comes, will begin another day, will repeat the cycle that has been repeated for thousands of years. But their evening is complete. Their night has settled over them. Their sleep is deep and peaceful. And you have been with them, have witnessed their evening, have shared their night, have connected across the vast gulf of time to touch something universal, something human, something eternal. As the night deepens, there is nothing left to follow, nothing left to remember. You can rest now. The night will hold you until morning. Sleep will restore you. And when you will wake refreshed, renewed, ready for your own day, carrying perhaps some faint memory of this journey, some echo of this ancient evening, some sense of connection to the vast sweep of human history and to all the people who have lived and slept and woken through all the ages. But for now, there is only sleep, only darkness, only rest. Breathe, let go, sleep. As the night deepens, there is nothing left to follow, nothing left to remember. You can rest now. As the night deepens, there is nothing left to follow, nothing left to remember. You can rest now.